Hi, the name of this Blender video tutorial is Basic Keyframe Animation. In Blender, almost all of the control settings for any type of object can be animated. In this video tutorial, we will examine the animation of an object's basic transformations: move, rotate, and scale. To demonstrate the basic keyframe animation, I've created a Blender scene containing a cube object named blue box and a UV sphere object named red ball. We are looking at the scene in front view with the red ball object centered above the blue box object up along the z-axis. The objective of this animation is to have the red ball object move down along the z-axis to the top of the blue box and then squish or scaling a bit along the z-axis and then rebound up to its current location. At the same time, we'll rotate the blue box around its z-axis 360 degrees. We want this animation to occur within a 2-second time frame. Now, before we insert any keyframe animations, I'll go first to the timeline window and set the length of the animation to 50 frames, which is approximately 2 seconds long. The default Blender animation frame rate is 24 frames per second. I'll first animate the blue box rotation. To begin, I want to add a keyframe at frame number 1 to record the existing state of the blue box object. Making sure that my timeline is set to frame 1, I select the blue box object and then press the I key. This displays the keyframe selection menu list for the blue box object at frame number 1. I'll select the rotation keying set. This records the existing rotation setting for the blue box object, X, Y, and Z, in frame number 1. I'll then go to frame number 50. In the Properties panel, I'll set the Z rotation for the blue box object to 360 degrees. I'll then press the I key and insert another rotation keyframe, which will record the rotation for the blue box object in frame 50. I'll then go back to frame number 1 and play the animation by pressing the play button in the timeline. Note that the blue box object now rotates 360 degrees around the z-axis over a period of 50 frames. I'll stop the animation and go back to frame number 1. I'll select the red ball object and press the I key to insert a keyframe for this object in frame number 1. Here I will select the Location, Rotation, Scale keying set, which will record the location and the rotation and the scale settings for the red ball object on frame number 1. I selected this key because I know I want to animate both the location and the scale of the object. Note the Z location of the red ball's object on frame number 1 is 10.0. I'll then go back to frame 25. I'll press the G key followed by the Z key and move the red ball object down along the z-axis until it's resting on top of the blue box object. I'll then press the I key and add another location, rotation, scale keyframe to frame 25. I'll then move the timeline to frame 30. I'll then press the S key followed by the Z key and scale the red ball object a bit along the z-axis to make it appear a bit squished. I'll then position the red ball object back to the top of the blue box. I'll then add another location, rotation, scale keyframe here for frame number 30. I'll then move the timeline to frame number 50. Here I'll move the Z location of the red ball object back to 10.0 and set the Z scale back to 1. Here I'll add another location, rotation, scale keyframe for the red ball on frame number 50. I'll go back to frame number 1 and play the animation. The red ball moves down along the z-axis and then squishes on top of the rotating blue box and then bounces back up to its original position. I'll stop the animation and go back to frame number 1 and go back to front view. Now to complicate this animation a bit, I'll select the red ball object, then holding my Shift key down, I'll add the blue box object to the selection. I'll then press Ctrl P and make the blue box apparent to the red ball. This means that wherever I move the blue box, the red ball will follow. I'll set the X location for the blue box to -6. Then, while in frame number 1, with the blue box selected, I'll add a location keyframe by pressing the I key. This records the location of the blue box in frame number 1. I'll then go to frame number 30, and I'll move the blue box object along the X-axis to the right. I'll add another location keyframe here for the blue box on frame number 30. I'll then go to frame number 50. Here I'll set the X location for the blue box object back to a -6. I'll add another location keyframe to the blue box on frame number 50. I'll then play the animation. The blue box moves from one side to the other while rotating 360 degrees. The red ball follows the position of the blue box, but also moves downward along the Z-axis and appears to squish when hitting the top of the box, then bounces back to its original position. In the next video tutorial, named Graph Editor, we'll explore how to edit this animation.